What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Now, when I last left you, we had just wrapped up a very fun meetup game that happened on board the WPT cruise. That video was very fun to make, not only for the poker itself, but because I got to show off this awesome suite that I was staying in on board the ship, as well as the rest of the cruise ship. That kind of stuff genuinely is pretty fun for me to make. I really like, thinking up different shot selections and inserting music that fits the vibe. All that stuff I find really fun about making these videos. Other videos, definitely more poker focused, more poker heavy, and this video is definitely going to be the latter. Now, I could insert a bunch of sights and sounds from the first stop on the cruise, which was in the Dominican Republic. Chocolate, double espresso, coffee thing. I could show you guys some gorgeous scenery from this super high elevated cable car ride, also from the Dominican Republic. But there is just so much poker to be played, so many hands to show you from this deep tournament run that we're just gonna have to get right into it. One thing before that, there is one quick announcement. There is a meetup game happening at the Wynn this Thursday, December the 1st, 10 a.m. The lineup for this meetup game includes some extremely special guests. Do the names Doyle Brunson, Phil Ivey, Patrik Antonius, Phil Hellmuth, Steve Aoki, Vince Van Patten, Lynn Gilmartin, Tony Dunst. Do these names mean anything to you? All these players, all these poker icons are going to be at this meetup game alongside myself and Brad Owen. It all starts at 10 a.m. If you can get there this Thursday at the Wynn, it kicks off the World Poker Tour World Championship. Hope to see you guys there. It's going to be insane. There will be a vlog. All right, let's go ahead and get into this tournament vlog.
A day at sea when you're on a poker cruise means a day of poker. Only this day comes with a $500 entry fee. Everyone else in this room has ponied up the $500 because today is the WPT Cruise main event. It's still an approachable buy-in for being a main event, but there's $28,000 in the prize pool, and everyone wants a little extra reason to dip into the champagne on this boat. That $500 that I spent at the door, this is what it bought me. 40,000 in chips. We're sitting down in level number 4. Just towards the end of late registration, that's going to bring us to the 400, 800 level with an 800 big blind ante. Good for 50 big blinds. Not exactly super deep stacked, so we're gonna have to make some things happen relatively quickly in this one. Action gets underway here in the first orbit. Folds around to me on the button, looking down at Queen 7 of Hearts. After I misclick it, getting the blinds wrong right off the bat, I put in the min raise 1600 on the button, and both blinds make the call. 3 ways to King Queen 9 rainbow. That gives us middle pair. Action checks over to me. Middle of my range, I'm just gonna go ahead and check this one back. Turn is the 7 of spades, second spade, action checks to me once again. Gotta think if I didn't have the best hand here, we would have seen a bet on either the flop or the turn at this point, so I'm gonna bet 2,500 unblocking flush draws as well as other holdings, but my opponents in the blinds both fold. We are gonna drag this pot here, brings us up to 44,400 in chips. We're off to a good start, dragging the first pot that we get involved in. In this next hand, same blind level, there's an early position raise to 2,000. We look down at ace queen offsuit. Flatting and 3-betting seems reasonable. Since we're not super deep stack, I kind of like a 3-bet here. I'm gonna make it 5,400 to go. Folds back to that initial raiser who makes the call. Heads up to a flop of jack 7-6 with 2 diamonds, does not improve us. Checks it over to me though, and I'm gonna try and stab and take this one down right away if possible. I make it 3,600, try and achieve a cheap bluff here, but it does not work as my opponent makes the call. Turns to 10 of diamonds, not great. We don't have any diamonds, we have no pairs, so when he checks it, I'm just gonna check it back this time. Rivers the queen of diamonds, so we end up with top pair here. This time my opponent leads out for 6,000. We don't have any diamonds and there's 4 of them on the board, but we have a reasonable bluff catcher. If my opponent has any bluffs in his range, it seems like he's going to want to utilize them here. 4 to a flush, usually a reasonable spot to try and take a stab and take a pot down. I'm a little bit curious here, and honestly, I didn't come all the way from my Rockstar suite to fold top pair, regardless of how many diamonds are on this board. I call, and we get shown the King 9 of clubs, which is a straight. The king nine of clubs is a straight, somehow backs into a straight on the jack 7-6 flop. No diamonds, runner straight, finds the value bet, 4 diamonds out there. Nice hand, sir. That is a solid value bet. He found the right customer. That's going to take us down to just under 30K in chips. Some choppy waters in the early going of this main event on the cruise. In this hand, there's another position raised to 2,500. Action folds over to me in the big blind looking down at king jack of hearts. We have an easy defend. Heads up to a flop that comes king 9-8 with 2 diamonds. I check it. My opponent bets 2,500 again. We've got ourselves top pair here and not a whole lot of big blinds behind. Usually when that's the case, we have a decent kicker. We're going to be looking to raise for value here, especially on such a dynamic board where there's going to be so many cards where we're not exactly sure what's going on and where we stand. If he happens to have a better king or pocket aces or flop to set or 2 pair, then he's probably just going to get all the chips and we're not going to be able to find a fold anyway on later streets. So I'm going to check raise. I make it 7,000 to go and my opponent makes the call. Turn card is an offsuit 6. Probably shouldn't change too much. 10-7 makes a straight, but he would have had to raise with that in an early position. So I'm not really afraid of this card, and I think betting again makes sense. I choose a sizing of 7,500, and once again, my opponent makes the call. River is an offsuit queen, which is pretty interesting because 10-jack gets there. I also think I can get to showdown now versus ace-king because that hand can't beat king-queen anymore. Ace-king would also be losing to flops 2 pairs, and I'm not sure what we can get value from anyway. So I'm just going to check it here and see what happens, and my opponent checks it back. I show it down, and turns out it's good as my opponent sends his cards into the muck. Up to about 46,000 in chips after this hand. Blinds go up, now playing 500, 1,000. We look down at 2 red 9s. I put in the min raise up to 2,000 from under the gun, playing 6-handed. We're short-handed as there's been a couple of busts off our table and we haven't received any replacement players. The hijack and the big blind make the call. So 3 ways to queen, jack, 10, 2 hearts. Not my favorite flop. All over cards. Big blind checks. I check. Last player bets 3,000. There's 1 fold. I decide to peel here. I've got the open ender. Gotta assume we'd face a 3-bet if my opponent happened to have ace king, some percentage at the time at least. So shouldn't have to worry about that hand in particular. Heads up to a turn card, which is the 8 of hearts. Gives us the straight. Does put through to a flush on board, so I check it and my opponent checks it back this time. River's a brick. I'm gonna go for some value here. I bet 5,000, but I don't have any customers as my opponent folds. Dragging another pot, couple hands that have gone our way recently. In this next hand, same blinds, the button raises it up to 2,300. We've got jack 9 suited in the big blind. That's another easy defend, I call. Heads up to a flop that comes queen jack 4 with 2 clubs. I check it, my opponent bets 3,000. We've got ourselves middle pair. Pretty easy to define our range on this flop. If we're looking for check raises, there's plenty of draws available. We could also maybe check raise some bottom pairs as a semi-bluff. For value, we can raise strong queens, we can raise 2 pairs, we can raise pocket 4s. Our pair of jacks falls in the middle of all that stuff, so when I'm in the middle of my range, typically I want to make the call. Turn is the 5 of clubs, I check and my opponent checks it back this time. River, ace of diamonds, not a great run out for our holding. I check it again and this time my opponent bets 4,500. Can't really beat too much here. King 10 gets there, flush draws get there, ace X hands get there. We can beat some small suited connectors, but that is a very small portion of his range, I would think. So just gonna have to let this one go. Next hand, same blinds, but we're at a new table, and it's always a beautiful sight when you move to a new table and you immediately get dealt the best hand ever created, pocket aces. I make it 2K to go from under the gun. Player on my direct left, he makes the call, and there's a player in middle position who wants to play for more chips. He makes a 3-bet up to 7,000. I don't know about you guys, but one of my favorite things in the world is getting 3-bet when I hold pocket aces. Folds back over to me. I don't want a flat call here. We got the player on my left. Don't want to give him a good price to allow him to come in, flop a set, or hit something. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the 4-bet here. I'm going to make it 18,000. It's a pretty small 4-bet. I think that's fine. That's going to accomplish the same objective of pushing the player out on my left, charging the 3-better a little bit more, and seeing as this is a tournament, stacks usually aren't that deep, so we can pretty easily get all the money in if we go to the streets. But unfortunately, my opponent, after thinking about it, decides he's seen enough action, can't handle this heat, sends his cards into the muck, putting our chip stack somewhere around 55, 56,000 at the moment. Blinds shortly thereafter go up to 600, 1200. We've got a stack of about 54K at the moment after going through the blinds. And in this hand, action folds over to the cutoff, who makes it 4,000 to go. Kind of a sizable raise here. We're sitting with ace jack of diamonds on the button. We've got a couple of options, but versus that larger than average sizing, I just decide to flat call and the blinds get out of the way. So heads up to a flop that comes queen, jack, four with two hearts. Once again, we flop middle pair of jacks. Player the cutoff checks it over to me, just going to check it back. Turns an offsuit three and the cutoff checks again. Now with a pretty draw heavy board, once again, it feels like we would have seen a wager if we were in fact behind with this holding. So I'm gonna put out a small bet, 2,500, and my opponent wants no part of it. He shows us the pocket fives and he lets those go into the muck. Up to about 60,000 for us now. Easy when you get good cards and you make pairs. Blinds do continue to rise though, as they do in tournaments. They are just relentless, these blinds, I swear. Blinds go up to 1,000 and 2,000. We are now sitting with about 46,000 in chips. That is only 23 blinds. As mentioned, these blinds are just relentless. So we're gonna have to hope that good things continue to happen for us and quickly in this tournament. In this hand, we find a pocket pair, the fives. I think those are worth a raise. I make it 4K to go from the cutoff. And the big blind eyes my stack for a little while and decides on a call. So heads up to a flop that comes queen 4-3 with two spades, and he checks it over to me with just the one over card to our pocket fives. I think we benefit a lot from a wager. If he happens to fold a hand like jack nine, for example, if we fold out that equity with the two over cards, I think that that is a good result. So I go for the wager, 4,000 again. However, my opponent does not oblige. He makes the call. Off to a turn card, which is an offsuit king. Checks it over to me. Now we've got two overs out there. Tough to improve with these fives, so I decide to check it back. River pairs the four. Once again, my opponent checks. I'm just taking this to showdown, hoping I'm up against a hand like ace deuce or something of the sort, but it is not to be. My opponent actually has ace king suited. Ace king of clubs, as a matter of fact, has us absolutely demolished. And if he would have three bet, I would have had a decision. Not sure I would have called pre-flop, but either way, not a good result. We lose some more chips. Once again, the blinds go up. 1,500 and 3,000 now. And in this hand, there's a middle position raised up to 6,000. Action folds over to me in the big blind, looking down at the 8-3 of clubs. Not exactly the prettiest hand, but it is suited. Not at all connected, but did I mention suited? I'm gonna go ahead and defend here, and we go heads up to a flop that comes down ace 10-5 with two clubs, giving us a flush draw. I check, my opponent bets 4,000. We're gonna need to see these last two cards. I don't like a flat call here, although it is a little bit treacherous because this board definitely favors the pre-flop raiser's range. He's gonna have all of the strong aces, he's gonna have pocket tens, he's gonna have ace 10. We're gonna have none of that stuff. We're mostly gonna have combo draws here and such. Not too much choice though. When we call pre-flop, when we flop a flush draw, we're gonna have to play for it all. I go ahead and jam all in, and my opponent thinks for a brief while before folding. Very good result. We take it down here with the 8 high as we were getting a little bit short, a little bit to a lot short. Very much needed that bluff to get through. Takes us up to 56,000 in chips. But as mentioned, the blinds continue to rise up to 2,000 and 4,000 now with a 4,000 big blind ante. And in this hand, the cutoff limps in for 4,000. Small blind calls, and we are in the big blind looking down at ace jack offsuit. We've got ourselves 12 big blinds in our stack. I think that is a very jammable 12 big blinds with this holding. I go ahead and rip it all in versus the two limpers, and those limpers make the folds. So that takes us up to 62,000 in chips. That's good for a little over 15 big blinds. And the action continues at a furious pace. In this hand, there's an early position raise up to 9,500. I'm on that player's direct left, looking down at the ace 10 suited in diamonds. With a 15 big blind stack, maybe we can find a flat here, but I kind of like a jam. I kind of like seeing all 5 cards. To be honest, I'm not super well versed in the ways of the 15 big blind stack, whether it's pre-flop or post-flop, but I do know how to send all these chips into the middle. That's what I decided to do here. I raise all in, action folds on my left, folds all the way around back to that initial raiser, who decides on a fold. Again, anytime we can drag in the blinds plus a raise, that's a very good result. All the chips matter in this tournament. In this next hand, same blinds of 2,000 and 4,000. I go ahead and make it 8,000 with the ace-6 of clubs. Player 2 to my left, he's got a very short stack. So short that it's only a little over 3 blinds. 13,500 goes into the middle from that player. Action folds back over to me. Obviously, we call. Turns out we are up against the king 10 of hearts. Fairly fair fight here. We are off to the races. Flop does not improve that player. Just the 1 heart. Turn does not improve him either. And the river is a clean one. So we eliminate that player. Dragon his short stack. But as mentioned, every little bit helps in this tournament, as once again the blinds go up 2,500 and 5,000 now. The 5,000 big blind ante got ourselves about 87,000 in chips. And in this hand we have a very multi-way limped pot with us in the big blind looking down at the worst hand ever created, 7 deuce off suit. So we go 4 ways to a flop that comes down 7-6-3 rainbow. That gives us top pair. I'm gonna lead here. I'm gonna lead into the field. I've got myself top pair. Definitely get value from worse. I'm gonna bet small here. I bet 12,000 and we see 1 caller in early position. Turn pairs the 3. I'm gonna bet again here. I'm gonna bet small once again. That looks like a pretty safe card to me. Not sure how often my opponent would peel with bottom pair, and that doesn't improve any other holding. I'm gonna bet small here again. Now he's gonna have to worry about me having a full house. So I think I can bet small and accomplish a whole lot here with a small bet. I bet 18,000 and it's a pretty good result. My opponent folds. Happy to see that and happy to drag in a multi-way pot with the 7 deuce off suit. Jumping up another level now, up to 3,000 and 6,000 in blinds. We've got ourselves 117,000 in chips. But we've got ourselves a premium holding. Love to see it. Pocket kings. I make it 12K to go. Out of early position, there's a middle position call, and the big blind makes the call as well. So 3 ways to a flop here that comes down ace, queen 10 with 2 clubs. Not my favorite flop. We can't dodge that 1 overcard. And when the big blind checks it, I'm going to check to middle position and see what he does. And he doesn't take too passive of a line. He bets 25,000. And to make matters worse, the big blind calls. So we do have a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, but chips are so valuable and so important, and so is stack preservation. So with the bet and the call in front of me, I'm just going to go ahead and get out of the way and fold these pocket kings. And I do watch the hand play out. There is a check and another wager on the turn. Big blind gets out of the way and the player in middle position shows us an ace. So on one hand, I'm happy to see that we didn't get bluffed. On the other hand, not exactly the most favorable of flops. We lose that pre-flop raise. And to make matters worse, we are instantly in the big blind here. And in this hand, the cutoff raises it up to 12,000. Action folds over to us in the big blind. We're looking down at ace 5 of hearts in this hand. It's suited, it's connected. We can make a flush, we can make a wheel, we can make a pair of aces, we can make trip 5s. We can do all sorts of things. So I'm gonna go ahead and jam all the chips in here. If we do happen to get called, if we run into it, then we have all those possibilities. But good news is that the cutoff lays it down. We get this jam through and we drag it in. In the very next hand, still playing 3,000 and 6,000. Action folds over to the player on the button who comes in for a raise. We are in the small blind here now, looking down at another ace, this time the ace jack off suit versus the button opening range with stacks fairly on the shallow side. I think we've got ourselves a jam here. I go ahead and 3-bet jam all in with the ace jack off suit. Big blind gets out of the way and the player on the button pretty much snap calls. Not an entirely great sign, but when I roll it over, we find some good news as my opponent has ace 10 of hearts. So we have him dominated, just need the board to cooperate. Flop is good, turn is good, and river is good as well. Find the double up here, up to 200,000 in chips now. But nobody get too excited as the blinds are once again going up. 4,000, 8,000 now, and action folds all the way around to the small blind who limps in. We are in the big blind looking down at jack 6 off suit. Now, you guys are going to be confused by my action here, but I decide to put in a raise. Reason being is that if my opponent was trapping with a strong hand and he goes ahead and 3-bet jams, then it's not too much lost if we go ahead and fold the jack 6 off suit. It's not really going to play that well post flop anyway, so when we check it back pre-flop, not too much to be gained there, I don't think. That's my thinking when I put in the raise at 20,000 and my opponent in the small blind makes the call. So we're off to a flop that comes down ace, ace 6 to diamonds, and my opponent just auto jams 200,000 or so right into the middle on this flop, which is pretty interesting, and I'm not exactly sure what to do, but I feel like I've got to give him some credit when he massively overbets the pot. We can easily have way better than this particular holding. If we have any ace like we'll often have when we're raising pre-flop, then we can easily make the call. But with his pair of sixes, I don't think we want to risk our entire tournament life. I just decided to give him the credit, and I go ahead and fold. After which, he promptly shows me the 8-6 offsuit. I said it. You heard correctly, the 8-6 offsuit. Just wrecked, just completely wrecks us. We had him absolutely crushed there, almost drawing dead as a matter of fact. Super dominated pre-flop, crush post-flop, but he's the winner. He's gonna take it down. All right, so we fast forward about 2 or 3 hands off of the deck, and that player from that last hand has just lost a very big pot, and he's left with 75,000 in chips, which he goes ahead and jams into the middle. We are 1 or 2 players to his left, looking down at the ace-10 offsuit, and after what I've seen with that 8-6 debacle, I think I've got myself a 3-bet isolation candidate. I'm going to go ahead and rejam all in here with the ace-10 offsuit. 2 players on my left, they go into the tank, not at the same time, one after the other, but they eventually decide on the fold. We flip the cards up, and we're up against the ace-5 suited. That's very good shape for us, although he still is going to win this one about 30% of the time. We're off to the races, and as it turns out, the ace-10 is going to hold. It stays strong. It collects the chips. It collects the pot. It collects the chips that we lost in that jack-6 versus 8-6 debacle, although he had more chips, and if we made that call, it would have been a lot more. But what can you do? We get a little bit of a get back here, and after that, and after a little bit longer, after a couple more eliminations, we have reached the final table. The WPT Cruise main event final table has been achieved by yours truly, by you guys. We did it together. We made it together to the final table, although we are not in the money yet. However, there are some discussions that take place as we are about to start the final table. The first is that we decide as a group, I didn't bring it up, but I didn't discourage any such arrangements. We decide to pay the bubble $500 off of first place money. So take $500 off of first place money. That money goes into the pockets of the player who finishes in 9th place. Now, that still leaves us a little bit of a debacle because there is actually 10 players who make this final table. The 10-handed final table. That leaves a new bubble. And as a result, one more proposal is proposed. The new proposal is that every player takes $20 out of their pocket, and that $200 will go to the 10th place player. And we have therefore unofficially reached the money, which is interesting because in this very first hand at the final table, we look down at ace-king offsuit. Blinds are astronomical. I come in for the raise. Action folds around to the small blind, who puts in a 3-bet that is less than all in, but is sizable nonetheless. He makes it 80,000 to go over my 20,000 chip raise. That's over half the chips that he has, so he's clearly committed here. We do have this player covered, so if we happen to lose a flip here, we can still have a fighting chance. And we've got ourselves ace-king, and we are in the unofficial money. I'm looking to gamble. I go ahead and stick all the chips in there. My opponent makes the call, and it is very bad news. The worst news, as a matter of fact, as my opponent shows us pocket aces. Just an absolute cooler in hand number one off of the deck at the final table. We run ace-king into aces, and there is no happy ending to that story. We lose a big chunk of chips. Quite disappointing, taking us all the way down to about 100,000 in chips. All right, trying to pick up the pieces here. We fast forward about an orbit or so, and in this hand, the low jack player puts in the raise up to 36,000. We've got ourselves king queen suited a couple spots to his left. I think this is a jam opportunity. We can't wait forever. We can't wait for very long. In fact, we're gonna have to try and find a spot, and this one looks like a good one. I go ahead and jam all in for my 100,000 in chips with the king queen suited. Folds back to that initial raiser, who almost hesitantly decides to make the call, but he's got us once again in very bad shape as he rolls over the ace-king, and we are off to see what could be our last 5 cards of the tournament. The flop gives us a little bit of life as it offers a gut shot straight draw. The turn is no help. We're looking for a paint card on the river, either a jack or a queen, and the river is a queen. The river is a queen. We stay alive. We more than double up. we collect the blinds and the antes and double up our stack for a absolute miracle river, absolute miracle situation, back up to 238,000 in chips. We live to fight on some more hands as the blinds continue to rise, now up to 8,000 and 16,000. And in the meantime, there are a couple of knockouts that I am not involved in, which means we are down to 8 players and we are officially in the money according to that original pay table. In his hand, looking down at a pocket pair of 10s. We're going to go ahead and raise this up to 32,000. Folds over to the big blind, who goes ahead and makes the call. So heads up to a flop that comes down 8-7-5 with 2 spades. Pretty good flop for us because we've got the overpair, and with stacks as shallow as they are, we're not going to have to worry about pot control. We're just going to play this one straightforward. Not going to down bet because the board is so connected and dynamic. When he checks over to me, I bet 35,000. And my opponent calls. Turn is the ace of spades. Of course, not my favorite card. When he checks it to me, I'm just going to check this one back now. The river is another ace. This ace looks much better. Offsuit ace on the river. And this time, my opponent puts out a bet of 45,000. Since he didn't lead out when that flush came in on the turn, and after that second ace came on the river, we're just gonna have to discount those hands. I don't think he flopped a set. I don't think he flopped a straight. I don't think he has a flush, and I don't think he has an ace. That means we can pretty much beat everything else. So I don't think too long before putting in the call, and we get shown the busted straight draw. We get shown the king 6. The 10s are gonna be good, and we drag in a pot here. Blinds go up once again, 10,000 and 20,000. We are looking down at the ace 8 of diamonds in this hand. I go ahead and put in the min raise up to 40,000. No takers, everyone folds. And we love it. The blinds are so huge, and every single win matters. Fast forward a little bit. Here's a shot from my Instagram. I currently have 385,000 in chips, going to the 30K big blind level. Average stack is 240K. That's 8 big blinds. Anything can happen here at this final table. This is very much anyone's game. In this hand, action folds all the way over to me on the button, looking down at king 6 of hearts. Very jammable here with the short stacks everywhere. This one gets through. Love to see it. Big stack increase anytime you win the blinds and ante. I stay uninvolved for a little while. We go down to 7 players remaining. Pay jump time, that guarantees us $1,100. I stay out of the way. I'm folding. I'm not finding too much to work with here. I stay out of the way. We go down to 6 players remaining, locked up $1,600 cash in our pocket. I continue to stay out of the way. 5 players remaining now, not due to any of my work, just laddering up, now guaranteed $2,200. It is at this point where we become very much involved. Action folds to me on the button, and you don't get to see it just yet, but I've got pocket 6s in this hand. It's a premium, as mentioned. Blinds are so big, and any pair is very much jammable on the button. So I go ahead and jam it in. The small blind, he decides he's got a worthy candidate, and he jams as well before action gets over to the big blind, who also decides he wants to go with it. And that is bad news because the overshove versus 2 players, it must be something good. And the story checks out as the big blind rolls over pocket kings. The only good news there is that he's shorter than myself and the small blind. Small blind has king jack, so we'll be playing for a side pot if we can't mow down the pocket kings. The flop doesn't help us, and in fact gives the king jack a gut shot straight draw as well. However, on the turn,
that would be a favorable turn.
Oh my. Oh my. I was not expecting that.
massive suck out here on the final table to crack the pocket kings. The Miracle 6 turn card gets the job done, and it leaves the small blind with crumbs. The small blind barely had us covered. So we're down to 4-handed, and that player who was in the small blind with the king jack, he gets eliminated in the very next hand. And suddenly we are down to 3 players in the cruise main event with $4,000 in cash locked up in our pockets. What a hand. All right, playing 3-handed here, the final 3 players in the tournament. I am on the button, as is the theme here. Stacks are quite small. I look down at ace 6 of hearts on the button, and that is definitely worthy of a jam. I go ahead and stick it in there, and the small blind, he quickly rejams all in. The big blind gets out of the way, and it is more bad news
as after I roll it over, we get shown once again the worst possible holding to be up against. Pocket aces for the small blind in a 3-handed game.
All right, big game.
50, 20.
There's no miracle to be found in this hand. We're left with crumbs, and we are going to automatically be all in because we cannot even cover the big blind with our chip stack in this next hand. The big stack, he pushes the other player out, and it turns out we are up against pocket tens. We roll our hand over. We've got 9 deuce offsuit, which is a very unfair fight once again. The flop actually gives us a lot of life. We flop an open-ended straight draw, but the turn pairs the board, and the river, well, the river gives us a meaningless 2 pair, which means the magic is over, the run is over, and we are heading home back to our suite on the ship in 3rd place, $4,000 for our efforts.
All right, guys, we did our best. It was a good run. I think we went a little bit deeper than we actually deserved to, particularly due to those pocket sixes taking down the pocket kings in that 3-way hand, kings versus king jack versus sixes. 6 on the turn definitely propelled us to a higher cash than EV might suggest, but happy with it. Happy to go out in 3rd, the WPT Cruise main event. Happy to put up a reasonably good score, reasonably good finish. Final table, 3rd place. Can't complain. We cashed for $4,000. So happy about it. Very happy about it. Going to go enjoy some cruise amenities and enjoy my 3rd place finish.
Now, I mentioned the champagne at the start of the tournament, and we found our way to that. But who better to help you celebrate a top 3 finish than your good friends Brad and Amber?
Let's go.
You get the bag and fumble it.
You get the bag and fumble it. I get the bag and flip it and tumble it. Straight off the lot, 300 cash, and the car came with a blunt in it. The mama a thot. You get the bag and fumble it. I get the bag and flip it and tumble it. Straight off the lot, 300 cash, and the car came with a blunt in it.